Good morning to all the viewers, listeners, yoga lovers, and yogic practitioners. Your question is very interesting and very huge. It is a loaded question, and I have to answer it. How do I answer it is a question which probably only the gurus here can guide me to probably answer this. First of all, why I am here? Myself, Brigadier Suhas Dharmadhikari, a veteran, having served in the army for 36 years and retired in 2010. As the years went by, I found my way into Kaivalyadhama, the Abode of Yoga, in 2014. This Abode of Yoga is really appealing. Yoga has been a passion of life as far as I am concerned, because I have been doing yoga right from 1967. And as a veteran soldier, I found my way into this institute way back in 2014, where the CEO here, Mr. Subodh Tiwari, he told me that you will be appointed as the consultant operations of Kaivalyadhama. Now, this being my charter of duty, I got about setting up myself and first of all getting to know yoga and what is yoga in its entire depth or its entire range. Believe you me, it's not been an easy transition from the soldierly field to this yogic field. But to my way of thinking, soldiering, golfing, and yoga, doing yoga is by and large the same thing, because you have to do the same practice again and again with a definite aim. There's nothing known as practice. The more you practice, the more you need to practice is what the definition of yoga should be, actually speaking. To my way of thinking, 36 years into the uniform and then having been braving the temperatures of -50 to +50, -50 being the Siachen Glacier and the +50 being the areas of Barmer and such like areas. Now the yoga gives you all the strength, all the mental strength, and rejuvenates all your faculties in such a way that you can keep yourself going for rest of the life, if not most of the life, if not all the life. So, my dear friends, yoga is the way of life. I have been traversing to Pune very regularly by both the old highways and the new highway or the expressway. But never did I know what Kaivalyadhama was all about. But one of my friends in 2013, when he told me that why don't you take a look at this institute, it might be able to serve your passion. And true enough, when I came here in February 2014, I found that, well, this is the place where I can be for the longest period of my lifetime. And I have done nearly 27 transfers in my service of 36 years. But here I have spent nearly 8 years, and the challenge here is growing by the day. Now, what is the yoga challenge is what we would definitely want to convey to you through this little talk to you all. You don't have to enter the field of yoga yourself. The circumstances and the challenges of your life will make you enter the life of yoga. And yoga is not only, like Swami Kaivalyadhama ji has said, that yoga has a message for body, mind and soul. Now, if the body, mind and soul has to have a message, is yoga just the body? Is yoga just the mind? Or what is the soul aspect after all? And when it is applicable to all of us, well, can we be dissociated from any of these three things anyway, any time in our life till we are breathing last? So therefore, with every breath, friends, yoga is the way of life. Yoga can be done by all of us and without a blemish. The more you practice, the better you will be. The better you want to be, the more practice that you got to undergo. I hope that meets the requirement of what generally everybody wants to do, is that talk about yoga being some asanas here and there, some pranayam here and there, and some exercises which have been aped or cooked up to just to meet the requirement. Today, yoga is a holistic life, especially after the 21st of June having been declared as the International Yoga Day. Believe you me, all of us in all forms of life, in all countries world over, need to do yoga and yoga alone. While in the service, the life is really very, very busy. And so busy is the life that you don't find time. And after coming here, I have realized that, well, my dear sir, you got to find time for yourself. Nobody else can find time for you. And this is the biggest change that has been brought into me by coming to Kaivalyadhama. When and how do I find time for myself? As a soldier, we are always busy in some activity or the other, but never did we think that, well, yoga can also be a supreme activity which must involve all of us. Now, to say what is yoga, everybody says it's a union of self with the subtle or with the God. Now, what is God? I don't know. What is subtle? I don't understand. Therefore, the easier option would be to say that union of self with the inner self. Now, what is inner self and what is outer self? That's again confusing. We don't know any of these things. These things need to be elucidated, explained by people who practice or probably teach yoga. And therefore, for universal well-being, you have to understand yoga in its entirety. That we will talk a little later. But what is even more important is the supply of blood flow to the entire region of the body. A body comprises of nearly about 14-15 trillion cells, and every cells, believe you me, want fresh oxygenated blood to rejuvenate itself or keep itself alive and going. Now, therefore, that is what is the requirement, and therefore I have simplified the yogic definition as something else, as something simpler. What is yoga? Is a question which, to my way of thinking, and I'll read it out for you, yoga in all its dimensions, I say again, yoga in all its dimensions is purely an experiential science. It's an experiential self-realization of all aspects related to body, mind and soul towards self-emancipation or Kaivalya. Kaivalya is self-emancipation, perfect isolation without being felt that you are being isolated. Through regulated postures called the asanas, which are of various types, the meditative, cultural and relaxation, or regulated breathing by way of pranayama. All this is theory. What is important is Nirantar Yoga Abhyas. And Nirantar Yoga Abhyas means continuously practicing yoga or the yogic practices as envisaged either in the Hatha Yoga or by Patanjali himself. And all that he says is, he sums up yoga in just 3 sutras, if I can say. One is Atha Yoga Anushasana. I say that again, Atha Yoga Anushasana. Then is, the second is your Sthira Sukham Asanam. Sthira Sukham Asanam. stability that gives you happiness. And the third and the most important is tapa, swadhyaya, ishvara pranidhana. Now what is tapa, what is swadhyaya, ishvara pranidhana? We can talk slightly more separately, because coming from a soldier's mouth, these particular things can be understood and understood by all of us slightly more differently than normally being taught in various yogic institutions. But believe you me, at Kaivalyadhama, the abode of yoga, which in itself is an original institution, and that's how I have taken to be here for such a long time. Kaivalyadhama, as I have already said, is the abode of yoga. What is an abode? Abode in which the whole range of facilities as related to yoga are available, and this is Kaivalyadhama. In Kaivalyadhama, we have the spiritual practices, we have the educational practices, we have the scientific practices, we have the literary practices, as also what Kaivalyadhama provides is a huge bhandar or a collection of books. The library here in Kaivalyadhama boasts of nearly 30,000 plus books, all related to yoga and spirituality. Believe you me, you want to read, let's say, any of the scriptures, any of the Vedas, or any of the serious reading material, to find that material itself is a huge exercise when you are outside. But in Kaivalyadhama, that material is readily available. Like in my case, let's say I want to read Atharva Veda. Now when I want to read Atharva Veda, all I have to do is to ring up Mrs. Archana Sinhaji and tell her that, well, can you give me a copy of the Atharva Veda? And minutes after, it's on my table. Similarly, any such book you want to read about, let's say, of Freud, you want to read about any of the psychological or philosophical facets related to yoga, they are all available at one place, and this is the biggest asset of Kaivalyadhama. And above all, what is more important is the practices that they carry out here, especially the fire worship which is done in Kaivalyadhama and in the Swamiji's kuti. Morning and evening they do the Agnihotra Puja, recitation of mantras in their entirety, a recitation of mantras with a lot of meaning being understood. Now when you do all this, yourself will automatically change. Take a simple thing. Guru Nanak Dev Ji has said, Ik Onkar. Now what does Onkar really mean? We don't know. How it is to be said, everybody has his own style. The answer to that is, yes, everybody can have his or her style, but at the same time, the basic understanding of yoga is the only sound which begins with the navel, and the only realization that I have had personally is to control something known as the most flexible organ of our body, and that is the tongue. It tastes, as also it helps in speaking. Now when it is doing so, then other things come to a standstill. But when you say Onkar, it is the tongue which is becoming still. Can you feel it yourself? Is a question which probably you will have to practice yourself. Realize that when you say Onkar, or the U and Ma, or the Akar, Ukar and Makar, and these three sounds, the tongue does not participate in either of the activities. It is not involved in any speech, neither are you required to taste anything. So moment the tongue is quietened, everything else around you can be quietened easily.